Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with RokoM and Michele. And this week, we're going to talk about the power of yes. I'm super excited about this one. I can relate to it in a lot of ways. And so it's a quote, actually, I posted that we're going to start out with, too, that I really liked. And so luckily for me, Roko liked it, too. So it is opportunity and abundance lie on the other side of yes. And so for me, when I think about how this applies to me and my life, maybe, and what I've done and what I've seen other leaders do and examples from other people, we don't even have the opportunity to step in and challenge ourselves or do things new until we say yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. And the reality of it is it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Roko?
So when you first brought up this topic, the story that came to mind was we had just finished teaching a problem-solving A3 thinking class, and we were driving home, and you were checking your emails, and we had a request to do a class. And the class required, so many people. I think it was like 24 people, and they were asking for a much smaller group. And you're like, we can't do this. I'm like, yes, we can. And you're like, no, we can't do it. And when we started talking about, yes, we can, what would need to be true in order for us to do it, it allowed us to explore all the possibilities of how we could modify and still have an impactful learning session for that class. And we ended up doing it, and it ended up being great. And so that was the story that came to mind. And so for me, the power of yes is it allows you to explore and really consider all of those possibilities.
That's so funny when you said that, because my brain went to us facilitating that class in that room in the Bay Area, because that's where it was. So my brain went there immediately. And I have to agree, it's one of those things, and I think in working with you, you've taught me that as well on certain things, because what came to mind for me when you said that is it causes us to get creative about stuff, right? And so it's not just about opportunities that challenge us, okay, maybe stuff that we don't know how to do or whatever it may be. But I think it's also in those situations that maybe we've said no before, or maybe it hasn't been done that way before.
Right.
So when I think about continuous improvement mindset and all that stuff, and I didn't think about it before, there's a requirement that yes is part of the conversation.
Yeah.
To be able to do something differently.
Yeah. I mean, it is the precursor to innovation and creativity, unlocking that piece of our minds. And you think about a team dynamic and a leader, right? You already have the imbalance because of the hierarchy of the organization. But when you're leading a team and someone has an idea, and by saying yes and then exploring it, you're now opening up and seeing what skill sets and ideas that person has beyond their role, right? Because sometimes we get pigeonholed into our title. And when we say yes to something and explore that thing with that person, it allows us to see them in a different light. And I think it's so important for leaders today, especially in this virtual environment, but even with in-person teams, to be able to see people for more than what their title is or what their role in the organization is, because they bring so much more.
Well, it's more than just the surface stuff, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What came to mind for me is there's an activity we're going to pull in with the group that we're working with, and it's from PQ coaching. Right? Positive intelligence coaching. And it's the whole idea of yes and.
Yes.
So the power of yes can show up that way. So let's say you're in a brainstorming situation and somebody comes up with an idea, and in your head, instead of thinking that is a stupid idea, okay, the rules of the engagement are this: you have to think, what is one thing in there that I can build upon?
Mm-hmm.
One element of what they threw out. So you don't discard the whole freaking thing. Okay. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Right. So where's the one thing in there you want to build on? And then what you come back with is yes, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no buts.
Yeah.
Yes, and you add and build onto it. And so that's what came to mind for me when you're talking about that, because it is that super empowering. It's also very inclusive.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I do. And I find myself saying yes as you're talking. Yes, yes, yes.
A couple of bobbleheads right here. We're going.
Yeah, the little bobbleheads.
Well, and I think about, like I said, all the jobs that I've stepped into that freaking scared the crap out of me. I mean, literally stepping into stuff when you do, if you've always done the same career and you have this path, you've got some level of capabilities as you go to the next level, right? But if you're someone who's changed careers, I mean, completely changed careers, there's not necessarily a foundation that you're stepping into that with. So it could be a lateral move. Like I remember I went from finance to a lean consultant. Holy cow, at that point in my career, right? And I remember Dave Rasmussen, when he asked me to apply for this job, right? And I'm like, because I had a really strong passion and interest in doing this. And I said, Dave, here's the problem. And it was posted as a black belt position, right, at the time, which I wasn't even anything close to that. I'd gone through 5 days of facilitator training, a lean facilitator. And so I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, but I'm not a black belt. And he's like, what better way to learn than on the job?
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, I give. I'm gonna. Yes, I'll try.
Take a leap of faith.
Yes. And so then I had to go and prepare to interview, because I had all these deliverables to do a job that I'd never done. Again, stressed, panicked. What am I doing? And I had a fear of being in front of audiences and people and all that stuff. So I was still battling and dealing with that. But I look back on that, Roko, and that's a defining moment in my life, my career, on this path that I went on, that I never would have been where I'm at now in the room with you, had I not said yes back then and challenged myself and done all that stuff. And so obviously there's a lot of energy here because I'm just thinking back on that going, oh my gosh, had I not done that, the rest of the stuff couldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about leaders who want to stay in control and be the decision maker where there is a no in it, right? Or, have them vet it before or not explore with people. How do you get started? What can we help them with in developing their ability to say yes and feel comfortable saying yes?
Well, and I think part of it depends, right, on the situation. But when I think about situations that you were describing as someone that, and for a leader, for instance, that you want to maintain, and what came to mind for me, and this may not be true for you out there listening, so don't get, well, you can get pissed off, it's fine. But it's maintaining status quo, right? And so it's staying in a safe space. And I think as a leader, the first thing that we need to look at is to ask ourselves, what's stopping us from saying yes? What's stopping us from allowing the possibility of something different, right? And I think if we're honest with ourselves, the underlying stuff is fear. And I think that's the first place to start, Roko, is for us to say, you know what, this scares the crap out of me because I may not have 100% control of this thing, and then do it anyway.
Yeah. For me, I think it's, I think we've talked about this before. It's being aware, monitor yourself for a week and just keep track of those moments where there was an opportunity to say yes or no. And just track how many times you actually say yes, or how many times you say no, so that you can start to be aware of how often you're opening the door to those possibilities by saying yes. So because I think awareness is the first piece of it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people aren't even aware that they're saying no or shutting things down before they even have an opportunity to be explored. So I think awareness for me is that first step in doing it, and then try it. Set some intention for yourself in a team meeting, in your huddles, in, you know, whatever setting you have available to yourself. Set some intention to say yes. So, you know, so that you can.
Do you know what other population came to mind when you were talking? It was parents. Parents. There was there was some movie that I watched where the parents had to it was a weekend or a day. It was a day maybe with their kids.
They had to say yes.
They had to say
all
yes.
day.
Yes. And that's what came to mind for me. And I'm like, oh my God. So as a parent, I don't mean you don't have to commit to the whole day, but parenting is leadership. So, you know, I mean, practice it, try, just dip your toe in the water, because there's power in doing that, and power in, especially if it's a leader saying yes to some other thing that may not be your idea, there's power in actually giving up control. So anyway, I have a smile on my face. And so what I want to do, Roko, is ask you, so what 1, 2 things would you like people to walk away with around the power of yes? Oh, and there's another quote.
Oh, we'll do the quote first.
Another quote, and then you can
do the quote first.
There's another one I really love too. So there were 2 of them. The 3 most important words that you can say to yourself is yes, I can. So the power of yes in that. So
what else is there to say? That's it. That's it. You know, just do it. Just do it. Set some intention to say yes. Just in like the story you said with the parents here, where they had to say yes all day. Set some intention. Be aware of it. Be aware of your no's and open up the possibilities. See people for more than what you've seen them as.
So I think for me, the thing is, because as we started to unpack this and talk about it, because we don't unpack this stuff before we get together, but I started connecting all these dots for me on the fact that I wouldn't be where I am today had I not said yes back then, right? And so I think for me, the thing is, if you doubted it all, the power of it, take a look back on your own life. And look at those moments where you've had change, advancement, celebration, whatever it was. And then think about what took place before that, preceding it. Was it a yes or was it a no? And so I think that's the thing. If you have any doubts at all, take a look at your past to see in those defining moments what happened. So anyway, I've enjoyed this. It's energized me, so I appreciate it. Thank you. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michele. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have a topic that you would love us to unpack, or if you freaking want to be a guest on the show, let us know. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you.